How you doing, man? It's been a whirlwind kind of 72 hours of cricket, if you will, and we have our 4 semi-finalists. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I mean, the four semifinalists have been announced, like you said. It is England, South Africa, India, and Australia. No, wait a minute. It's
It's like,
Australia. Australia's
please.
been knocked out. Like, there's one way to stop Australia from winning the World Cup. That is to just knock them out before they reach the knockout game. So, Afghanistan has made it for the first time to the semi-finals, and I mean, there's just so much to talk about. I think there's just too much excitement here that Afghanistan has managed to make their way through. It's a phenomenal feeling. All the excitement has been about them as opposed to any of the other three teams. But there's so much to get into.
Yeah, and we will get into it. We'll start by talking about the most recent game, and then we'll spend some of the time talking about the rest of the Super 8s. We'll talk about India versus Australia, which was a good match and phenomenal Rohit Sharma heroics, and then we'll preview the semi-finals a little bit. But Varun, let me start by saying DJ is not with us today. He wanted us to make sure we make a very clear point that this was his 4 semi-finalists prediction. I mean, are you surprised by it? On the one hand, I was sitting there having this moment during the game last night, my time, saying if it ends up after all this drama and the twists and turns and Marcus Stoinis batting England out of it and Josh Hazelwood's press conference, etc., if it ends up with all that being India, South Africa, England, Australia, that's almost a little too predictable. So
Yeah, I can't remember what all of us had said at the start, but yes,
you said Afghanistan wouldn't even make the Super 8s, I think.
yeah, I know, man. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's crazy because when you start a tournament, it's hard to think that Afghanistan will make it. Like they're going to cause an upset, they're going to do well, but at the start, I didn't realize how one result is going to affect this so much because it's not a league stage where everyone's playing everyone. It's not a quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So essentially, it came down to a situation where you lose one and you're really under pressure. You um, have one match that's a bit rained out. Again, you're really under pressure. So something kind of did, it just felt like between Australia and West Indies being such strong teams, West Indies being at home, Australia being Australian World Cups. I didn't expect this at all. So credit to DJ for getting there. I guess if he was on the podcast, I'm pretty sure he would say it's going to be an India Afghanistan final. So let's take that as his prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get to the finals yet. I want to wrap my head around what's just happened. But I mean, Australia not making the final four of a World Cup. I mean, even when they've had awful years, I mean, still too soon to talk into the depths of 2023. But they didn't look as good as they needed. You'd think they need to, and they still make it, and they have that big game ability and big game mindset. But they will look back and say in the Super 8 stage, we only won one of our 3 games. And so, although there were nervy moments last night where it looked like Bangladesh might bat Australia into the semis, it didn't happen. And I don't think Australia will sit saying they deserved it.
Yeah, so just to be clear, right? Australia lost to Afghanistan,
Yeah.
and so that put pressure on them. And if they won against India and Afghanistan won, it would have come down to net run rate.
Yeah.
The fact that they lost, and now it became a situation where all Afghanistan had to do was beat, and that's what Ashwin is kind of referring to. For the listeners, he's just referring to the fact that Afghanistan still couldn't make it a convincing victory. And
Yeah.
so there was a point in the game at the mid break of the second innings where there was a possibility where all three teams could have gone through.
Yeah, till 12 overs basically had passed. And so that was the equation, right? Bangladesh needed to chase down the 115 in 12.1 overs. Once it was clear they didn't do that, it was not totally clear. And let's get into this game now. But it was not totally clear what Bangladesh was doing. And I say this obviously not being on the conditions, knowing that Afghanistan has phenomenal bowlers. It is not easy to bat out there. But to me, I guess, Varun, let me ask you, do you think there's any reason, what is the driver of playing for the win when the only thing that matters is if I make it in 12.1 overs, I'm in a semifinal. If I don't, I go home. I guess there's like match fees. There's a spite to Afghanistan. Maybe they don't want to cede that rising giant of Asian cricket to Afghanistan. And like, what could possibly have been the rationale for them to want to win, but not in 12.1 overs?
I think for Bangladesh, like, look, you have to take into account that as a sports person, you put everything else aside. Like, you need to qualify for the next round. That's just the way this works. So, I think what happened is that they would have celebrated the fact that they restricted them to 115, and it was showing on like Rashid Khan's face at the end of that innings. He threw the bat when he was denied a second run.
That was
um,
maybe the best
and
moment of the World
and
Cup so
one
far.
haven't seen things like that, right? You don't
Yeah.
see stuff like that happening often, but it just shows you how invested both teams were. And so I think Bangladesh actually thought that they could do this. The pitch didn't seem that bad. It seemed like Afghanistan's batting post the openers just hasn't clicked, and that reflects in the fact that Gurbaz, I think, is the highest run scorer of the T20 World Cup so far. So they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, but I think Bangladesh would have given themselves a shot. I think when they lost the third wicket, they kind of understood that this 12.1 overs game is going to be very hard for us. And so if you can't qualify, the next thing you have to do is win. It doesn't matter if Australia goes through or not, right? And I think that just became the
I think
reason.
you're right. You're being more balanced than I am. But in watching it at 7.1 overs, even when the equation is 2 runs a ball to do it in 12 overs, them hitting a forward defense just felt so
Yeah,
silly.
yeah. What you're saying is you might
At
as
least
well
I'm saying
die
swing for the
trying. Yeah,
absolutely. That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. Get it
Just
down
go
to
down
30 needed
trying.
off the last over. Know that it's 99% not going to happen if you're bowling, if you're batting to Naveen or Fazal Haq or somebody, but give yourself that shot. So anyway, let's run through the game. Like you said, Afghanistan only went 115. I think very clearly their weakness is over reliance on the openers, and the openers have made so much more together than any other partnership in the World Cup so far. But then came on the chase. And by the way, there was rain kind of coming and going. The match was running late. It finished almost after 1 a.m. local time. 115 for 5. Bangladesh will be backing themselves, but again, knowing the equation is 12.1. Litton Das comes out and starts playing a blinder. Just hitting what felt like for the second time in one day in our time zone, one batter felt like they were playing on a completely different surface. And I'm talking about Rohit, who we'll come to after. But Litton just batted phenomenally. And Bangladesh's innings started going. So there was so much math going on, right? I live in the US. I'm trying to explain it to American friends. How do you explain that in the last game of a group stage, all three teams can still qualify for semi, depending on one wins, the other wins by a certain magnitude, or Australia watching for the semis.
I
Then
mean,
you add in,
I couldn't even calculate the NRR. I had to ask you how to calculate it because
yeah,
it
at
just
one
felt
point,
so complex because we're used to doing this in 15 match tournaments where each
correct,
playing team is playing 15 matches and one win by 20 runs doesn't affect it. But in
correct,
this case,
it can
yeah,
be
it's
huge.
it's huge.
And then you layer on that Duckworth Lewis on its own day is hard enough. Duckworth Lewis, but factoring in shortened games into an RR math just got all kinds of crazy. So the moment that was funny was at one point, it was they were 80 odd for 5. Okay. Bangladesh is 80 for 5, so needing 35 odd runs with about half the overs left. This was probably the point when they knew they couldn't do it in 12.1. The Duckworth Lewis par score was uh, was 81. Okay. Then they got a wicket, and the Duckworth Lewis par score, or sorry, they were slightly ahead of the Duckworth Lewis par score. Then they got a wicket. Duckworth Lewis par score, it goes 80 for 6, 80 for 7. Suddenly, they're now behind the Duckworth Lewis par score. Okay. At this point, they know Afghanistan, full credit of Rashid, an incredibly savvy cricketer, incredibly savvy skipper. At this point, Afghanistan knows they're losing on Duckworth Lewis if the rain was to come. So they are putting in their overs so fast. Rashid and Noor bowling back to the top of their marks. I mean, it was so quickly. They were just coming in ball after ball after ball. And at one point, then rain starts coming. Rain starts coming down. When the wicket falls, Jonathan Trott, the Afghanistan coach, recognizes, "Hey, we are now ahead on Duckworth Lewis. So if it's going to rain out at this point, let's let it rain out." Signals from the boundary rope, guys, slow it down a little bit. Basically, meaning, hey, go look at adjust your field a
Yeah,
little, call for some water. This that. Have you seen the clip yet? Did you
yeah,
see what happened?
I've seen it many times.
Uh, Gulbadin had to slip, just spontaneously falls over, onto his back and just lies there. And I was just dying laughing because you fully understand the emotion of a game where your coach has said, slow down, you're currently ahead on the rain. And Rashid's running up saying, what the heck are you doing? What's happening? Like, there's a million smart ways to slow down a game. Never before in cricket have I seen anything like this. It was such ridiculous drama. But what is your take? What do you even say? What is your take on this?
I mean, so many things, right? Firstly, give that man an Oscar. It was great. Like
Okay.
the way he clutched his hamstring and then fell and then turned over because that's how you should be. It should be flat and
Yeah.
straight. Um, it all checked out. Like you couldn't really tell that, I mean, I'm kidding, of course. But, and then Rashid runs over because it's possible that in all of this chaos, he doesn't know that we're 2 runs ahead. Um, and so I don't know if I think he was, as the captain of the team, he must have been like, this is ridiculous. But also, why has he done this? Why has he taken such a drastic step? Because Noor Ahmed was at the start of his run up and took
Yeah.
2 steps. So
Yeah.
clearly
And then
nobody
he
was
just started
slowing
going.
down the game.
Yeah.
Nobody was slowing down the game. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if that had been edged and gone for a boundary and then the rain came and then you went off, that's it. Afghanistan was done. So you're right. Understand the emotion. What was great was that when the rain came down, now Gurbadan can't get up like
Yeah.
a footballer and
Yeah.
just start shake it off and running. So
Yeah.
he's now carrying on this performance
Yeah.
and limping off the field.
With
And
two guys.
yeah, and Naveenul Haq is trying not to look at him to laugh. And so I think it's credit for the commitment, man. Like he just went to it. He could have given up at any point because literally like 7 minutes later, he came back and he bowled and got a wicket.
Yeah, so he came back
and
on,
he came
had
back with
this
his
thick
pants
hamstring strapping on.
and his pants were fully up. You could see his full leg, and then he's like suddenly rolled it down and steaming into bowl.
Yeah.
So I think it's the commitment. It's the commitment to carry it on after the rain. That
Listen,
was what it is for me.
if I think we would have a very different discussion if it had truly impacted the game, right? Let's be honest. You understand the spirit of cricket and this and that. It didn't matter. It's the Caribbean. These are passing showers. They came back on. He didn't come back on for 1 over. Then came back on, and as he came back, he was sort of still doing the limp thing, and then settled. And then at one point, he just said, "F it, I have to bowl." And bowls the first ball. Liton Das, to me, a little foolishly at 7 down, takes a single, and then he's bowling to Tanzim Hassan Saqib and gets the wicket. And at that point, Ian Smith, I think it was on air, says, "The man with paper hamstrings but the golden arm." That should be the title of Gulbadin's book someday, because this is just an absolutely phenomenal story. But then you had this last layer of drama as well that we weren't super clear on overs getting reduced, because they went off one more time. I think they went off at right at 9 of 8 needed. They went off for a very hot second, came back on. They weren't clear if you lost an over or not, because if you lost an over, I think it was 9 off. Now I'm getting my math wrong. Yeah, 9 of 8 becomes 6 off of 2.
Yeah.
And the whole math changes. Anyway, didn't end up mattering. There was a drop catch off of Naveen. Naveen ul Haq then bowls one more. Taskin gets bowled. That's when he got bowled. Sorry, he got bowled. They went off. Come back, gets Mustafi's first ball LBW.
But did you see the Bravo incident with that?
Yeah, walk us through it really quickly.
So
I watched the clip.
this who knows how much of this is, but Bravo's standing next to Fazal Haq and is just standing there quietly waiting. And then when the camera pans to him and it comes on big screen, he tells him to go and tell Naveen to bowl a short one so that he edges it to the keeper. Now, again, acting abilities. Fazal Haq runs up to Rashid and Naveen and keeps doing that to show them that it's going to come a short ball. Mustafizur is obviously thinking, I've cracked the code here. Like, these guys don't know they're on camera, what? And he's expecting a short ball, and the ball is a fuller.
Yeah, so he's way back in the crease, waiting for
it. He's way back, zero doubt that it's going to be given out because of how far back he is. And again, I don't know, is it genius? Is it what? Is it really actually true? But everything conspired for them to win. So, what, with 8 runs or something to go, they pulled this off, and it was just historic. And then they went berserk. And Again, not to mention that Gurbadin was the fastest on
running
the field
7 minutes.
for
I mean, have
the
you seen, as
celebration.
of the time of recording this, about 15, 20 minutes ago, he's posted a picture with his doctor saying medical miracles and
Are you
all. Yeah, he's
serious?
embracing it. Listen, why not? At this point, I mean, even Rashid and Trot and everybody should tell him, listen, it's it's clearly everybody's enjoying the moment now. Now,
Yeah,
maybe he gets slapped with a fine from the match referee or whatever, and that's okay.
yeah,
But he has to embrace it and know that that's how this. And anyway, I don't want to say it's fine, but it sort of is fine. It didn't matter the result of the game. It was funny.
look, man, from our perspective, anything that gets Australia out is fine.
Absolutely. So Australia's out. Varun, before we take a quick break, let's talk about. We take it for granted because they are undefeated in the tournament. But this is the craziness of this format: 6 wins in a row, and yet South Africa played West Indies in what ended up being a must-win game. I mean, it's crazy to think they had 6 wins in a row and one loss against West Indies could have knocked them out of the tournament. But that's how scrappy South Africa's losses have been. They didn't have a significant net run rate advantage, etc. That group had a different dynamic. With England having won 2 of their games, whereas our group, India, won all 3, so it changed the equation. But do you want to walk us through very quickly the West Indies South Africa game, also rain affected, and looked for a minute like West Indies would find their way back, but obviously they couldn't.
Yeah, again, South Africa in World Cups with a rain affected game. Like we were going a bit crazy messaging at that point, but basically the game just turned when Janssen and Markram, within a span of like 4 balls, got Shea Hope and Puran out. That's
Yeah.
it. Like the top order had done well. For West Indies, the top 3 or 4 are very important to give the lower order that freedom. And when Nikki P went, it was just like 1 of 3. It was a disaster. And that's when I think shoulders kind of drooped. Now, Royston Chase and Mayers did a good job, but just around the 100, strike rate. So not enough. And then nobody got going. Like there was a point in which you thought Russell was going to turn it on, but he got run out. So very
And he was
disappointing kind of.
so upset at God, man. Like, because
Yeah.
that was it. That was the difference for the World Cup. Honestly,
Yeah.
at that point,
I
Russell.
mean, if Russell had smacked another, even just 3 sixes, got you to 155, it's a different game. So I think I think that was the turning point, but I don't think that was where they necessarily lost it. And then South Africa comes out, kind of, Quinton de Kock, 3 boundaries in a row, things get started, but they also just kept losing wickets at regular intervals. I mean, I want to shout out for Alzari Joseph. He bowled really well. Like he was the length he bowled, he was getting it to bounce and move. And it looked like it was going to be easy, but South Africa, as South Africa always does, just kind of every 20 runs lost a wicket. And it kept West Indies in the game to the point that they were basically 100 for 7, chasing 135. And I think that they basically got lucky that, Janssen and Maharaja kind of batsmen, Rabada with this one boundary that turned it around. But really, it was a 17 over game. They won in the 17th over. So it was much closer than we were expecting. Sad to see the West Indies knocked out at home. Like they are such a fun team. But you have to say, I think South Africa deserved it on the night.
Probably over the course of the tournament too. I mean, yeah, you had these little captaincy moments where they gave the ball at the end to Obed McCoy with 6-ish to defend, and Janssen hits a 6 on the first ball of the 17th, the last over, and gets the runs. And you're thinking, did they miss a trick a little? Now Russell and Alzari had bowled, and Akil Hussain and Roston had bowled through their spells, and Gudikesh Modi had gone for 20. So I understand it on paper, but giving pace to a lower order bat, which may be a mean description of Marco Janssen's capabilities, but giving pace to a lower order bat just didn't necessarily seem like the smartest move. But phenomenal. I mean, we'll talk in the next half on preview of the semi-finals. Absolutely huge congratulations. We're getting comments in the chat too that Afghanistan are worthy semi-finalists, and Gulbuddin should truly be submitted for the Oscars. And yeah, Varun, we're going to take a very quick break. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button. Doesn't take a lot of work. It helps us grow. Hit that subscribe button so you hear from us next time we're live or next time we post. We're going to take a very quick break. We will be right back with more Edges and Sledges. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. like I said, if you're listening to us on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening or watching us live somehow on X or Twitter, which we tried to link our connections, let us know. Let us know how it went. We'd love to hear from you there as well. Varun, before we get to semi-final previews and final predictions, India played Australia. It is mind-boggling to me how excited everybody was to knock Australia out, for Afghanistan to make their first semi-finals. I don't think we've ever recorded the day after an India game. And the reason this episode is late is because we were waiting for the semi-finalists to be determined. I don't think we've ever recorded a day after an India game and waited till the second half, 20 minutes in, to talk about it. That's how big Afghanistan was, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like before getting on, we said everyone's going to want to talk more about Afghanistan. So we decided to kind of hold back the India piece. But India against Australia, I think post 19th November, the trauma, like all of us feel it. You know who feels it the most is the captain, Rohit
Yeah.
Sharma.
Yeah.
And that really showed. So I'm happy to just do a quick rundown, but basically, this Rohit Kohli opening is, in my opinion, it's not working. And let's talk about this at the end, right? In
Yeah.
terms of there's so many things India could change. They are not going to change even one of them, but let's hypothetically talk about what is the one or two things they should do. But Kohli got out cheaply, and then Rohit just went berserk. Like pull six, off drive six, straight six. It was just eight sixes in that innings, 92 of 41, the highest number of sixes by an Indian in any T20 World Cup. And the next was Yuvraj. Now, remember, in an innings, the next
Yuvraj
was
hit it in
Yuvraj,
one
and
over.
he hit six in one over and then one in the rest of his innings. He ended up at seven
That's a
total.
great stat, man.
So this
Oh my
guy
goodness.
has just, I mean, he just went ballistic. I have not seen him bat like that. It was like he had something to prove. He was swinging. It was a high risk sort of a game, but something was connecting, and I just felt like it was a brilliant inning. So I've criticized Rohit a lot. I think he hasn't done enough, but even if he had made half these runs, 41 of let's say 20 balls, I still think it was a brilliant inning. So the fact that he went on to 92 was great. Pant, I, yeah, it was a bit of a mixed inning. He just keeps hitting that reverse sweep. So you kind of got to think at some point, do something different. Maybe just play a straight batted shot. Maybe people are not going to be expecting that of you. And Sky. So Pant went at about 100. Sky, I think, helped Rohit and they changed the game a little bit together. Now, what happened after that in Shivam Dubey was, I don't know if you want to just kind of voice it out. Look, I like Shivam Dubey, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say to that point, it looked like Rohit was betting on a completely different surface. At one point, I think Kohli and Pant combined were on had made like 2 or 3 runs of 13 balls, and Rohit was already at 40. But then Sky came in and made it look pretty easy too, or pretty good as well. I mean, it felt like Dubey. So Dubey had the opportunity to play Zampa a little bit. I'm surprised, disappointed they didn't give the ball to Maxwell, because that's what we would have been assuming Dubey
And
was
I
there
think
for.
Dubey could have taken him apart. That's why they did it.
But that's good captaincy from the Aussies, right? Or good leadership there. But man, I feel like I've used this word a lot, because again, we sit here saying 28 of 22 on paper in a match where Kohli and Pant couldn't score. It's not that bad, but it looked unbelievably scratchy, just incredibly scratchy. Wasn't able to get it away. What you don't need from him is ... .six, right? You'd rather take one singles every ball you can't get, and then get four, or still obviously you want the six. But so for me, if Dubey's coming to the team with the role, and we'll talk about the finals, but the semis, but if Dubey's coming to the team with the role to be a spin killer in the middle overs, that's not 28 of 22 with 1-6 is not that. And that's not me saying the pitch was easy to bat on, but on a pitch where Sky hit a couple, Rohit hit 8, you're just like it's not good
And
enough, right?
Pandya after that hit too.
And Hardik at the end looked phenomenal. Hardik in India colors looks completely different than he looks in Indians colors.
Yeah.
And he just looked great. It was a great finish. I thought at one point Jadeja would have the opportunity to bat a little longer. He ended up getting a 6. I mean, on paper, at the end of the day, 205 is not bad. But if you are playing a dedicated number 5 to be a spin basher in Caribbean conditions, it was tough to watch, man. And I've said that about him, unfortunately, a few times.
I just feel my personal feeling is that he just tries to hit the ball too hard.
Yeah.
And maybe he's thinking the ball is going to come onto the bat and it's not. And my only way to counter that is to hit it harder. There's something that he's not got right. I guess it doesn't help that they've played across countries. So he hasn't had the time to kind of really sit and understand the pitch. But at this level, you don't have that kind of time. You get one game. By the second game, you're expected to understand the conditions and start moving on. So for me, yes, I think if he just tries to time the ball a little bit better, it'll help. And then he also has to realize that there is Pandya, Jaddu, and Akshar to come. So all the burden of this innings is not sitting on his shoulders. I'm pretty sure if he got 28 of 12, the team would have been much happier with him and probably could potentially add another 10 runs to the total because of the ball saved. So I think he just has to take that burden off his shoulder because Kohli and Pant are a bit of a mixed bag. Sky has been a mixed bag. So yeah. Anyway, so like we said, they ended up at 205, and then Warner gets out early, which was great. But then
Which was
all of these,
shockingly parallel to Kohli, sadly, right?
yeah, it was. And
Yeah.
Warner, by the way, has retired.
Yeah.
And so just a plug for him. I mean, I think a great player has won every trophy that he's played in, including the IPL. World Test Championship, 2 World Cups, and 1 World T20. And I'm not counting, I don't know if he's won a Big Bash at Dubai League,
I mean,
all
yeah.
of those. So,
Yeah.
anyway, Warner goes, and Head and Mitchell-Marsh kind of build up this partnership, and you're thinking, oh man, this is going to be hard. And I, without even doing the math, I was never worried that we're not going to qualify. It was just a
Yeah, I actually was
situation.
very worried until we went 205, to be clear. Because if we made 130 and they chased it down in 8 overs or something, people weren't thinking about it enough. But yes, so I credit to you, you were right. But
Yeah,
I
no,
was more
yeah.
nervous than I needed to be.
Yeah, I think you were a little bit, and that's fair. You know what happens to India in certain situations, right? So they just, even Max. So Head gets 76, Marsh 37. Even Maxwell got 20 of 12, and everything is moving in the right path. But then I think that Kuldeep's spell was great, and you know what's happening? We're all waiting for Kuldeep to come on. So this team is a lot about Kuldeep and Bumrah, and very well supported by Arshdeep at the end. If I think through the last few matches, we haven't picked up that many wickets at the start.
Mhm.
But Arshdeep has come back and picked up 2, 3 in 1 over at the end. And so credit to him there. But, for me, Ashwin, like Akshar Patel's 2 overs for 9 runs,
Yeah.
when Jaddu and Pandya were getting smashed, just to put into perspective, Jaddu went for 17 in 1 over and Pandya went for 47 in 4. So Akshar Patel's 2 overs in the middle, I think, just helped India seal the game.
Yeah, I mean, 100% right. I'm going to take a quick plug to talk about Mitchell Marsh was batting at 87 for 1 in 8.5 overs, and Kuldeep comes into bowl, and Akshar Patel, who you mentioned for his bowling, is on the boundary. And Marsh like swipes it full speed, flat kind of shot. Akshar Patel, wrong-handed, lefty guy, wrong-handed with his right hand, jumps. I mean, I was watching this in real time. There was no chance he was going to take it. You'd think, does he maybe save a boundary by like sort of swatting it out of the air? Does he? And he grabbed it, fell, was nowhere close to the ropes. I mean, there's so much
And the
brilliance there.
the ball moved with the wind.
Moving
And
ball,
yeah,
wrong-handed, grabs,
a
fall.
fielding coach behind you.
Oh, perfect, just
Yeah.
perfect, right? I mean, full credit. Those are the moments, right, in a tournament, in a short-ish. I mean, the short-ish final stages of a tournament, when Travis Head's batting and Mitchell Marsh is going for it. He'd already hit a couple sixes. That's probably for me was the turning point of the game because that brought back in enough belief for the Indians. I mean, they ended up making 181, and that's what created this whole net run rate dynamic, right? If they had made 140, 150, it may have changed the equation for Bangladesh as well. But pretty good win. Varun undefeated going to the semis. So let's pivot quickly. Does that make you more nervous? Are you wishing we had one
I
one
kind
loss?
of wish we had just lost because it would have been. I mean, there's no logic to this, but it would have been that one loss, maybe a wake up call. Now we go
I
into
mean,
this saying
technically,
everything is
Canada we
perfect.
didn't beat Canada. So do we count that as a loss? It rained out.
I mean, I think we can safely assume that we would have beaten Canada. But yeah, I mean, look, it's great. technically, how many games have we played? Including the Canada
6,
one,
7,
six,
including Canada. Yeah.
7 including Canada, and we've played 12 in the last World Cup, which was about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So in 19 games, we've lost one.
It was the
Right?
only one we
So,
cared about.
yeah, but it's the only one that we care about. But that's what I'm saying. So, is there something wrong with the team? Probably not. But as let's get into the India's chances in the semi-finals. I think India's playing England, and I think that's going to be very hard because. Sorry, go ahead. You were going to
No,
say.
and so let me ask you, right? This may be the first time in a while. This is harsh a little bit, so take this with a grain of salt. India has obviously undefeated, but some cracks, right? Kohli, I think, has made 65-ish runs the whole series. That's probably one of the biggest cracks, and we'll come back to it. England was a one Marcus Stoinis innings away from not qualifying, right? If Australia had done what they could have, England would not have qualified to the semi-finals. South Africa needed Marco Jansen to hit a 6 in the last over against West Indies to kind of sneak through, and Afghanistan needed Gulbuddin to kind of fake cramp, and that's not why they won. Full credit to them.
Yeah.
But every team has looked pretty scratchy. So you don't have a dominant, I guess India
No,
probably.
You
But
don't
have
have a dominant
side.
team.
Like
That's the funny thing.
This could have easily been Australia and West Indies in these semis.
Yeah.
Easily.
100%.
So talk me through it. With that lens then. India plays against England and Guyana, I guess we're playing. And I guess it's first South Africa, Afghanistan, and Trinidad, and then India, England, and Guyana.
So very quickly, first South Africa, Afghanistan. I think both teams are going to go in there thinking this is our shot, right? Yeah. Afghanistan is going to think if we bowl second and our spinners turn it on, we have a real shot. Like that's an outside chance, but we have a real shot. The momentum's on our side.
So if you're Afghanistan, you follow the playbook, try to get openers, get some runs, bat runs on the board.
I think the risk for Afghanistan is just if you bat first and you get blown away for like 75 or something, I think it's very hard to recover. But I think their strength is the bowling. And I think the risk, by the way, you said Gurbaz, I think, injured his knee. So now there's also a very high possibility that he doesn't play. And knowing this guy's spirit, I think if he can move, I have a feeling he's going to want to play. But it's a big call, right? It's the highest run scorer. So, and South Africa is going to feel that I can't recall if they've made a finals before, but South Africa is going to feel this is our ticket to the World Cup finals. So I'm actually going to be really interested in that game. Now comes to the second one at India versus England. Let's just first acknowledge England. They have thrashed a couple of these teams to get their net run rate in a situation where they control their own fate. Mm-hmm. And I think they are just about coming good. Now, Butler and Salt hold the key. If you take you back to that last semi-final that we played, they won by 10 wickets. If they get going, I think India is in trouble, right? But if either one or both of them get out, their middle order has not proved well enough. And our strength is our bowling. So it's really about those top 2 wickets, in my opinion. Just find a way to get those 2 in England, and I think you have made inroads.
Yeah, No, I mentioned South Africa just eking through. England probably should have beaten them, right? And they fell short on the day, and it didn't end up mattering. Both teams made it, but yeah, England should have beaten South Africa too. So let's do quick predictions. Who's making the finals for you?
I'm going to say India, South Africa.
Yeah. I'm going to say India, Afghanistan. I'll go with it. I'm like, why not? Feel good story. At this point, our predictions are much more wrong than they are, right? So let's enjoy it and own it. And then, Varun, the question then becomes, okay, England top heavy, very clear. I don't think you're changing Kuldeep at this point. So I don't think Siraj gets to look back in. I don't think you do anything to the bowlers. They've played, other than the Kuldeep Siraj swap, they've played the same 10 guys from the start of this tournament. If you are Team India, Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid, and Virat, who's still in the leadership group, obviously, what are you thinking going to the semifinals in terms of combination and or strategy?
I mean, okay, let me give you my perspective and then let me just tell you. I think there are lots of things you can change. I think you can push Kohli to 3 and make Pant open. It's a small change, does not involve getting Jaiswal and have this so controversial because Jaiswal should be the opener and Pant has done well at 3. Yeah, Pant has done decent at 3, okay? Yeah. He's played and missed a lot, he's fallen a lot, but yes, he's got you some runs. Yep. I don't see any difference of him coming opening versus three. Kohli at three in these tricky pitches is a better bet. So that's the first change I would make. The next change I would like consider is Dubey. I would still back Dubey to play one innings in a knockout game, but after seeing Rohit yesterday and his kind of expressions and frustration when Dubey was batting, I think there's an off chance that you may see a Sanju Samson or somebody coming in. So that's essentially the second change. And then at the expense of who, like, I never thought I'd say this, but it's Dubey and Jaddu, man. Those guys are the two weak links right now. Kohli is Virat Kohli, right? So let's not talk about a weak link there. But between these two, I think it's going to be interesting. But let me say, I don't think they're going to make a change. I just feel these are the three opportunities.
Do you think it's fair for a Jaiswal Samson type to get their first World Cup opportunity in a semi-final?
Look, it's you're there with the team, you're training, you are not in game scenario, but it's happened before, right? You've gone through World Cups in the past where your top three, Dhawan, Shikhar, and Dhawan, Rohit, and Kohli have got you through to the semis, and suddenly you need Pant and DK and all the Jaddu and Hardik to start playing and performing. Yes, they're in the middle out there, but I think a Samson and a Jaiswal need to just be ready. That's all. And maybe if Dubey holds his hamstring and falls, then Rinku comes in. So
There
there's
it is.
there's 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 many things you can do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's pretty shocking so far. It's uncharacteristic for India to not have had any back spasms or niggles or anything of that sort. But I'm with you. I don't think they change anything. I think what it comes down to, and actually, we have a comment coming in live on YouTube that says India have a very good chance in Guyana. The one English player is performing well in West Indies is Phil Salt. Exactly what you said. But he hasn't played in Guyana yet, and his wicket would be important. So, very, very, very interesting. I'm with you, Varun. I don't think I change anything up. I would like to see a little bit more, as much as Rohit played a phenomenal knock with the bat, and he's captained well as well. So I'd like to see a little bit more creativity with how you use the bowlers. Like if Butler and Salt get off to an absolute flyer, do you leverage Bumrah a little bit earlier? If if Akshar is going for runs, which he probably won't, do you give Jadeja more? Do you give Dubey the ball? I'd like to see us use the fact that we've played four all-rounders for the first time consistently for the first time in my memory. And so we bat through 9 and we have 7 bowling options. Is that math right? Yeah. Like I would like to see us use that a little bit more. That's my only thought.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. Varun, crazy day, crazy times. I'm going to be watching the Gulbadin video again and again and again, as I'm sure you have already. Just huge kudos to Afghanistan. Congratulations as well, obviously, to South Africa, England, and India. It's going to be an exciting semi-finals with games for you and for me are sort of you go to bed watching a game played, you wake up and it started already, and it's been both great and a little bit tiring. So it'll be good to be done. And with Euro 2024 season is done, if anybody is missing fake injuries, etc., you'll be able to switch over and catch it, because obviously that's a thing football is a lot better known for than cricket. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Like I said, if you watch this on Twitter or X Live, leave us a note, leave us a comment. We love to know how that's working as well. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment. We read every single one. We are at One Tip One Hand on all the social media, or even onetiponehand@gmail.com. We'll be back after. It's hard to believe I'm saying this, but we'll be back after the World Cup finals. And although we got a big summer of Wimbledon and Olympics and stuff, there's going to be a void when the World Cup finals wrap. But for now, we got 3 big games left to determine who will lift the T20 World Cup. This has been the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.